Yeah. If everybody could sit around, like not less like an audience and more like in a circle thing. That like there's a bunch of seats up here and some around here and. So tomorrow night we're going to be talking about what it is that the Yes Men do and how we got started and what the legal issues are and all the usual questions about the Yes Men. But since this is a workshop on actually doing an action of some sort in the future, I'm going to assume that everybody knows the basics of who we are and so on. If you don't, you won't get some things. But I'll explain some of the techniques that we've used, but more as like, here's your toolkit, here's the various things that we've done. Maybe some of these things can be useful to you. Maybe you can improve on them. Maybe they're just the start. As we've been working over the years, we've changed the way we've done things several times, depending on the issue and the situation. I know there's maybe some ideas here in Lucerne that we've never done that I think are fantastic ideas, so we could talk about some of those if they come up. But to start with, maybe I'll just talk about a few of the things that we've done as like, just to get the ball rolling, maybe for about an hour. Different sort of techniques that we've used over the years. And then after an hour, maybe we could start actually brainstorming something to do here in Lucerne, for you to do here in Lucerne, or somebody here to do in Lucerne, maybe all of you, maybe a few of you. And so we'll open it up and try to develop some actions around important issues here. One of the recent things that we've done is create a fake press conference. This was November, I think, October of 2009, and it was the first time we had ever done this. So it's very recent, we had never done it before. We met a group that wanted to do an action with us, and it was their idea to create a fake press conference entirely. So a press conference is where you invite a bunch of reporters, you announce something very important to them, and the reporters write it down and print it. So we wanted to, together with this group, we came up with an action to around the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is a business lobby. It's not a government organization, it's a representative of commerce, of big business in the U.S. It's like a club, except they spend like $400,000 a day lobbying for various bad things that we don't like anyways. And we decided to impersonate them at a press conference, to set up a press conference and deliver an announcement of what they should do. So that's the basic thing.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report, and this latest news as we are broadcasting. Afghanistan will hold a second round of presidential elections on November 7th after fraud claims discredited the first round results. Sharif?
Well, the business community got a shock on Monday when its leading advocacy group appeared to make a startling announcement. A statement purporting to come from the Chamber of Commerce said the group had dropped its opposition to congressional legislation and would now even support taxing carbon emissions. It was a striking reversal for an organization that's been one of the most vocal opponents of efforts to regulate emissions of greenhouse gases. The newswires quickly picked up the story, and within minutes it was being reported on the websites of outlets including the New York Times and Washington Post. It has also made its way onto cable news, including the Fox Business Network.
One day after his latest hoax, the Yes Men's Andy Bickelbaum joins us now from Washington, D.C. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Andy. What about the statement of the U.S. Chamber?
Oh, okay, and since I'm here, just tell you. So this action, this was the most important part of it, maybe, this accidental part, where the actual guy got very angry, stormed into the room, and gave us a giant media opportunity. Suddenly, every TV station was interested in this story. We were on Fox, CNN, MSNBC, all the big stations in the US. It was everywhere. But it was only one part of the action. It was a big, complicated action. There was also a series of press releases that we sent out that morning. So at the same time as I'm talking, we're sending out a big press release.
You have a fixed crew that's working with you, or it's just...
No. In this case, we worked with a group that we had never met before. They're called the Action Factory. This group of climate activists in DC. Sorry?
Sort of NGO.
Yeah, NGO activist groups set up by a bigger group called Avaz to be mobile and do actions on the climate, roughly. And we also worked with some people that we know in New York and that we had worked a little bit with, but not very much. And then we also worked with we were 2 or 3 people that often work together. We really started in earnest on this 5 days before the action. We should have started 2 months before, and it's always the idea, start 2 months before, prepare it, pretend like the deadline's next week to do.
How do you feel in such a moment?
You feel very tense, and it's adrenaline and it's fun, and I recommend it. Yeah. And then when something accidental happens, you just are ready to jump at it. You may have planned it perfectly, and have considered all the nuances of the situation, and then something completely different happens, and then you just have to set up roles so that when something weird happens, everybody knows, okay. Or just, in this case, we didn't define the roles, it was just sort of implicit. The person filming just keeps filming, no matter what happens, never turns off the camera, of course, follows the action. Somebody else who happened to be at the door, who had set up the whole thing, just held the person off, just fulfilled that role. I just kept doing, I didn't know what was happening, so I had no choice. I just kept going. And then when he burst in and interrupted, I just let him talk, and never revealed it. So I just never revealed the fact that I just kept up the pretense. Because it's funny, not because anybody was at that point convinced. Everybody knew I wasn't the chamber, but it's just funnier. And this is Mike. You're 5 minutes later than you said. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Cool. Yes.
So we've
Thanks.
Been,
get
so
me up to speed.
we're kind of
listen for a while.
Yeah, we're just going over various things that we've done as techniques, not explaining what we do, because the idea is we'll actually come up with an action, and there are, I believe, people here who will take an action forward. So we'll get maybe for another half hour.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this action there were 3 plus 5 plus 5 plus 10, maybe, however many that is.
About 25.
Yeah, maybe. So a completely different sort of thing that we've done was printing a fake New York Times, 100,000 copies of the New York Times. This we did in collaboration with Liz and Scott, her partner, and a bunch of other people. This was a few months before the election of Obama. We assumed he was going to be elected. If he wasn't, we would have horrible problems, so we just assumed. And we prepared a newspaper for a week after the election that we wanted to basically send the message that, okay, we've elected Obama, but now the real work begins. The real work, it's not enough to elect a leader, you actually have to create pressure on the leader for them to actually be who you want them to be. That was the whole message. Like, often in America we've had the experience of electing somebody like Carter or Clinton, and then everybody celebrates and relaxes, and well, in Clinton's case, turns out to be just as bad as a Republican, because he's faced with these enormous business lobby pressures. And so we created this newspaper as a vision of a world that was possible, and in each of the stories, and it was post-dated 6 months in the future. So it was published a week after the election, post-dated 6 months later, presented a great world that at first glance looked like it was real. People would get the newspaper, believe it. Each of the articles would say, this happened because of massive public pressure over the last 6 months. So a lot of people rose up, took to the streets, rioted, civil disobedience, whatever, and so the Iraq War has ended, or we've got national health care now, or this and that and the other thing. So there's a lot of components to this action, and including, well, printing the thing, finding a printer. We had to go to 3 different printers, writing the thing, coordinating, dozens of writers, and then editing the paper, talking to the media. Well, when we do an action, we basically figure out if it makes sense. What do we want to do? Just let our minds run free, and then we come up with an action, or we have in the past. This is, we in a group, or a group and we, whatever the thing, come up with the ideal action. What would we like to see? And then we think, well, how legal is that? What trouble will we get in? And we know how to answer that question ourselves now. We won't get in any trouble, or any trouble we do get in will be very welcome. That's always the answer now. But we used to ask lawyers, and they would tell us different things. And the ones that we believed, who happened to be the ones who are defending us against the chamber lawsuit, would say, just go ahead. You're protected. This is fully political speech. You're allowed to do this. There's legal precedent, etc. Good enough. In the case of the New York Times, one of our partners, the main partner, was worried about what the consequences might be of printing a fake New York Times and distributing it. And we had to go back to the lawyer and say, can you reassure us again, please, that this is okay? And so they did. The New York Times didn't react to the paper because they need free speech. It's part of their business. If they don't have laws protecting free speech, they can't print anything either. They did ask us to take down the website, and we refused, and that was the end of the story.